What's going on, everybody? This is Daniel Harms with the RGR Football Channel, film analyst, really senior film analyst here now. Thank you for that, Jeremy. Appreciate the pay bump there. But yeah, we're getting back into the film review today, guys. This is Wednesday, our film room days, and we are talking about the edge position because really this has been one of the most talked about, really the most talked about position groups in all of Chiefs Kingdom over the entire offseason. We're going to talk about Frank Clark. Yes, he took a pay decrease to stay in Kansas City this year because, he didn't really have a choice. He thought he was going to be cut. And when you're trying to get one last payday, trying to figure out one last payday, doing it on the open market after a disappointing season is not the way to do it, okay? It's not the way to do it. And Frank Clark is hoping that this season he can come in, work with Chris Jones, work with George Karlaftis, and get in a little bit better shape. As we've seen some pictures of him, he does look a bit trimmer, and I'm going to get into what I think that's all about in this film review. But he has been one of the focal points of this defensive line, and unfortunately it's been an abysmal start to his really entire Chiefs career. He had an okay season coming out the very first year, but ever since then it's been relatively unpleasant, and he's been really not able to consistently play at a high level. But there were a couple bright spots, I think, not just this past season, but overall. We remember him in the playoffs when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, closing out games. Yeah, they were more of effort tackles and effort sacks, but he was able to close out those games pretty effectively, regardless of the player that he really turned out to be in Kansas City. And this past year was no different. He was very up and down. He did have the second most pressures in Kansas City next to Chris Jones, but again, we're talking about a 20-ish drop-off of pressure, 65 from Chris Jones to 46 from Frank Clark, nearly 20 total pressures difference. And then you go from him to the third guy, which is Tershawn Wharton, funny enough. It's almost the same, 46 to 28. We're talking about 18 total pressures. And the conversion rate for those guys, Tershawn Wharton had a better conversion rate, turned 28 pressures into 3 sacks, not great. And then Frank Clark turned 46 pressures into 5 sacks, not great. 4 of those 5 sacks came after the acquisition of Melvin Ingram, by the way. Tells you a little bit about the player. He can't be the focal point pass rusher. Can't be. He can't do it. He can't do it by himself. He's not that player anymore that he was in Seattle. He's never been that here. So he's hoping to be able to muster up whatever he has left to get one last payday. So let's go ahead and jump into the film and really kind of see what we're going to be dealing with Frank Clark this season. Hopefully he can take some of the things that he learned about his body last year and sum it up in a much better way this year, be a more efficient player, because he has not been that in Kansas City. So off the top, really, he had a very good outing against Colton Miller the second time around the Chiefs played, and this was a defensive battle for him that usually he loses to Colton Miller the last couple of years. He's made him look pretty bad, but Frank Clark had 8 pressures in this game. He was all over Colton Miller. Really does a good job here of attacking the outside with his lateral step forward, forcing Colton Miller to that drop spot, but then you see his inside hand location right underneath the shoulder pads. Perfect, because he's already Colton Miller's already moving to his left. Now you take that shoulder pad and really kind of shove him, continuing his momentum that way, and you can open up this gap right here, which is what he does. And then he really does a good job of getting right inside here, tries to rip underneath through and get some pressure on Derek Carr, but obviously the ball comes out quicker than Frank Clark can get there. Been a very huge problem for most of these Chiefs pass rushers last year. They were able to win sometimes and really create some pressure, but it didn't amount to anything because they were unable to get there quick enough. And that's been something that I think myself and Ryan have really talked about, that these bigger defensive ends, guys like Frank Clark, like George Karlaftis, they don't win as quickly as you really need to when the ball comes out super quick in the NFL. So we're going to see how he improves, how George Karlaftis improves, and how they can really help each other this year. And I think that a lot that has to do with Frank Clark came out of talking about how much weight he's lost. He does look a bit trimmer than he ever has in Kansas City, and that's before the cut down, really, because when you get in the training camp, you do lose some weight. So I'm interested to see if it helps his first step at all, because he could really improve his game, because he does like to have some outside-inside counter moves, but typically these tackles aren't worried about him winning to the outside. So this is more what I'm talking about. But one of those times that he actually wins from the outside. He's able to get past Colton Miller. He times the snap pretty well, but again, that upfield, a little bit of a dip there. Something else, his cornering ability, he does have it. He just, for me, he gets lazy at times, and I think that he was extremely gassed a lot of last year, whether that has to do with getting healthy, whether it has to do with his body just being a little bit overweight than what he needs to play at, and that might also play into why he lost so much weight this offseason. Well, I say so much, I don't really know how much he lost, but you're going to see right here, he does a very good job of kind of, when I talk about cornering as appears to bending, like he's not really bending, because as much as that would be a good idea here to bend and really get that, I call this more cornering because you get your inside shoulder underneath the tackle here. So his left shoulder has already cleared it. He kind of does this little bit of a loop almost, like with, if you guys watch me real quick, just like a loop with your shoulders, your body, you kind of sneak under there. And he does a good job of doing that here, and then cornering off right here. Not just getting run upfield because Colton's still trying to follow, but again, block. He's trying to block him, and Frank Clark's doing a good job here of just cornering, getting as close down the line as he can and readjusting himself. It's still a little bit upfield, as you can see here. He's still upfield, but he's working to get him free and get around. So that game, he had a really good time against Colton Miller, guy who's shut him down for the most part, and he would have had, I believe, two whole sacks in that game had it not been for a penalty on one of the plays. So actually, it might have been that play, actually, that he got. There was a penalty somewhere else that got the play thrown out. So, yeah, Frank Clark, the big reason that I think he's still in Kansas City is because he does his job well, okay? They move him down. This is a fourth and short or a third and short situation, and they move him inside to be that more of a three-down defensive tackle with Derek Nottie, Jerron Reed. And he does his job, like what you're supposed to do. He's setting up inside here, and you're going to see how he's able to create some really good moving lanes for Nick Bolton, like and Anthony Hitchens, because he takes on that double team, which is what you're supposed to do. But setting up inside is one smart from the defensive staff. So he's really in this gap right here, more almost shading the left guard. So you have him now knowing that you have a double here. So he's going to actually take on this double team here. So what that does is it kind of, you can kind of see this left guard here shading to the outside. He looks like he's bending in this way just in case he has to get off that double quickly to get to Frank Clark. So he's pulling him off his block a little bit, kind of allowing Derek Nottie to be in there as Derek Nottie does. He's a very good double team taker on. But again, looping back outside and making this gigantic hole here. Also knowing the 71's coming down here. Actually, it wasn't a double, just coming down. So you allow Nick Bolton to follow. And when you have this double here, you have Ben Neiman taking on the tight end here. You have a double here. It allows him now to come through two lanes. You open up two lanes for both of your linebackers in a short yardage situation, which is what a defensive end is supposed to do. It's what these defensive tackles, these defensive ends are supposed to do on rundowns. They're not always going to accumulate all the tackles. What they are going to do is open up rushing and fill lanes, fill gaps for the linebackers. So he did a really good job here of getting outside onto that double team. Ben Neiman actually takes Jared Cook for a ride there. So you have two defensive players from Kansas City and three offensive players from the Chargers in the exact same spot. So this ends up going nowhere. Nick Bolton comes down and Anthony Hitchens finishes it off. So a good job by Frank Clark doing his job. That's what you can ask him to do in the run game. He does it very well, and he still has some good plays against the run. Some bonehead plays too, but I mean, that's at this point, that's what we're talking about with Frank Clark. But again, the pass rush is really where it comes into play. And this is what I hate the most, because I've talked about it a lot. When offensive tackles don't have to really worry about you beating into the outside, they can just rush you upfield. That's something I talked about with Mitchell Schwartz years ago, is he was so good at understanding how to just run guys upfield and let Patrick Mahomes escape whenever he needed to. But this is exactly what this backup or bad tackle does, and Frank Clark just doesn't get down the line. He can't corner. He can't get his hands off him. He just keeps running upfield. Same happened to Melvin Ingram in this play. Like, they would just let Ben Roethlisberger stay up in that pocket, and no one else is there. Like, you got to be better. Like, he tries to kind of like dip underneath, but he just kind of gets pushed out because he doesn't have any of that juice anymore. That first step is so inconsistent from Frank Clark. He doesn't have that speed that I believe he had in Seattle. And you're going to see right here, he does try to dip underneath right there. He tries to do the exact same thing he did to Colton Miller, but his hand misses both of the tackle's arms. So he has no way of keeping him off of him. He timed the swat wrong. He doesn't have, like I said, that elite bend dip, so he can't actually get his shoulders down underneath this tackle and turn his hips at the same time. He can't do any of that. Right there, he tried, but then he just gets pushed off because when you have bad timing, inconsistent timing, especially when you're trying to swat hands down right here, you're going to see it again. This left arm tries to swat, like he just missed. Had he not missed, maybe he has a better chance of cornering, because really when it comes down to it, you're trying to keep these hands off your shoulder pad when you're trying to corner, trying to get around here and get to a Ben Roethlisberger, who's not going to move around the pocket very well anymore. But instead he misses and he gets put up field and just run around the quarterback. So this has been a consistent problem on Frank Clark's tape that I've noticed. He gets run out around the back end far too much. He has inconsistent get off. The speed's not there anymore. That first step has been a problem, and I think that he's trying to improve that this offseason. Again, trying to get paid one last time. You're going to have a good season in Kansas City because we all know it's his last one. Last year was Frank Clark's worst season ever in terms of missed tackle percentage. 37% of the time he was missing tackles. That's really bad. I believe both of his worst seasons were in Kansas City, so his tackle percentage has gone down every single year. This may not be the best way to really show that, but the running back does a pretty decent job of getting his hand up and getting the stiff arm on him, but still, you got to be better. Again, set the edge, no movement, and he just gets pushed off of him by Benny Snell. Like, it's just, at this point, you have to find a way to really get this tackle pushed inside. I know your job is to set the edge here, but you got to get out there a little bit more. This has been a problem for him as well. He doesn't have that speed. We saw it against Josh Allen, which I don't really, it's hard for me to be mad at him for not running down Josh Allen. Josh Allen's different, man. He's a different kind of speed. It's like trying to get mad at him for not running down Lamar Jackson. That kind of stuff doesn't bother me. But here, a slow, plodding running back, he gets both hands on and just falls off of him. So if you go back through and watch some of his tape, like, he is missing tackles at an alarming rate. So he's got to cut that out. Well, that was one of the biggest problems on this defense last year. And Nick Bolton was the biggest improvement in that area. I'm hoping he can rub off on some of these guys because they desperately need it. Really bad. Really bad. And then this is more of a timing thing for Frank Clark. Like, he actually did not do a bad job here of get off. He did a good job timing it up with the snap here. Right there. You see it? He's the first guy off. So he has it. Even with his bigger frame and his heavier weight last year, he was really gassed in this game against the Bills. Like, I give it to him. They did a lot of things, motioning and getting him to have to wait and read for not just the run, but a possible end around or a reverse, things like that. It did make him wait quite a bit. So he did a good job here of just reading that snap, timing it, and just beating Deion Dawkins off the edge there and creating a pressure. Unfortunately, when you have guys running into each other, you get a guy running down the field open wide. Like L'Jarius Sneed and Mike Hughes here just run into each other, and then this would have been a sack. Probably. Or at least an incompletion instead of a touchdown. Like, Gabe Davis did nothing on that play, and he gets rewarded with a touchdown. You get lucky sometimes. So, again, the get off needs to be better. And this is the point that I'm trying to make, is I do think that him getting a little bit lighter in the offseason is going to help that first step. He's definitely hoping so, and I'm hoping so as well. I'm just hopeful that Frank Clark can come in and be a decent player this year because at the end of the day, he's not a solo player. He is a complementary player, a complementary pass rusher. You see here, he's actually quite poor on stunts because he's slow. If you watch when he rushes, it's a lot of shoulder movement. He does a lot of this moving around back and forth stuff, and it slows him down. He doesn't have a ton of lateral agility. We know that. But again, he's coming back. Oh, he has to like take a step backward. Look at all of this space. Instead of being able to come around it and hug that guard being taken off by Chris Jones, he has to come all the way around, and it's slow. He's lucky that Melvin Ingram was there, because I think Josh Allen is going to break that tackle. But he is a complimentary pass rusher. He needs a Melvin Ingram on the other side. He needs to have Chris Jones with him. Like, this is what he needs desperately, because he's not going to be able to consistently play on this defensive line as the solo pass rusher. So if George Karlaftis, for whatever reason, comes in, has a good year, and he does well and keeps some pressure off of Frank Clark, I believe you can see more of this from him, and they can mix in those stunts well, and that he can have a decent season. I'm not talking about a double-digit sack season. I don't think that's there for Frank Clark. I'm just hoping to see an 8-9 sack season, closing in on that double-digit, because at the end of the day, like I said, this pass rush, this defensive success is going to be determined by that, and I really believe it. So I'm hopeful that Frank Clark can have a decent year. I don't want him to be, the best guy out there. I don't think he can be, because it's just not his game anymore. But at the end of the day, we know that Frank Clark is a competent run defender. I think that he's shown multiple times that when the run comes his way, he sees and identifies well. His body at times would let him down. We saw against just now with that Benny Snell run, he's unable to really get explosion off that first step, and get after the running back and get in the backfield sometimes. But again, even in this game against the Bills, there was a play earlier against an end around to Stephon Diggs where I think we can all kind of vision it in our head, where he lumbers back and forth and then nearly falls over, then does fall over, but still ends up tackling Stephon Diggs anyway for a 1-yard gain. So the mental game is there. His body has been unable to keep up, and really has let him down a lot this last couple of years. I don't think he's going to be a star ever anymore. Those days are long gone. The Seattle Seahawk Frank Clark days are past. What you hope for now in Kansas City this season, with the last year of Frank Clark, is that he can come in good shape, in good condition shape, and be able to contribute in a pass rush element with his run stopping ability still there. That's all you're hoping for. Be an 7 to 8 to 9 sack guy. If you get to 10, bonus. You can get yourself a little bit of payday. You help this defense. Maybe you give them a chance to get another chip. That's all you're hoping for at this point with Frank Clark. You're hoping that he can be a competent pass rusher. Get those inside-outside moves set properly, and hoping the speed gets back, and you're really just kind of hoping that he can figure out how to best beat tackles off the edge to set up that inside spin move that he loves to do, but he can't work it because he couldn't beat anybody on the outside very consistently last year. So consistency. If he's just a consistent player, that's all I'm asking for. All I'm hoping for, because that'll help elevate this defense to an even better level. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow for Seth, Ryan, for the Chief in the North. Maybe I'll be there. We'll kind of see how that goes. But we're almost at training camp now. We got a couple more days until the rookies report. Make sure you guys hit that like, hit the bell, hit the sub notification, everything. For us, for you, it helps everybody out. Just please, maybe don't forget to hit that like. It really does help get us out to more Chiefs fans. But one thing that I want in the comment section, okay? There's one thing. Give me the player on this defensive line, not named Chris Jones, that has the best season. On the whole defensive line, that could be backup defensive ends to backup defensive tackles. It doesn't matter. I want you guys to tell me who you think is going to have the best complimentary season in Kansas City, guy not named Chris Jones. We're almost here. Training camp is finally around the corner, and I'm hoping you guys have a wonderful day and the rest of your week. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more, and subscribe to RGR Football.